Hello and welcome to the Weekly Astrology and Spirituality Show with Patrick and Elisa Arundel for week commencing the 5th of April. Now, as we make our way into this new week, so we're benefiting from the spark of energy that Mercury is creating by moving into the first sign of the Zodiac, and that of course is Aries. So it's moved out of that enervating link with Neptune last week, which was probably quite draining, confusing, distorting, but now there's a real sense of the potential for new beginnings. It is also true that right at the end of last week there was a quarter moon, and that was in the very traditional sign of Capricorn. So if we are embarking on anything new this week, we could just encounter someone who may push back a little bit. Now that's just the scene. There's loads more to tell you about the astrology. We'd just like to say thank you so much for all the comments on last week's show. We have really been pulled in quite a few directions because of our imminent move, and of course we've continued to try to search for somewhere else to live and haven't been quite successful yet. So apologies to any of our patrons for not keeping you up to date. It's simply because there's been a lot of things ebbing and flowing, and we want to give you a firm position, and Elisa is going to do that at the start of this new week. Now, in terms of the
Hermetic Wheel,
what does this week hold?
Stick that wheel on the screen. So if we have a look at this Hermetic Wheel, we are still in that decan that we were in last week, really. So we're still having that energy of the Three of Wands.
The second decan of Aries being governed in astrology by the sun.
Yeah, exactly. So we're still benefiting from that energy. And the Three of Wands is about opportunities, innovation. It can very much represent travel or new business. Just being open to broadening our horizons in some way. So we may feel inclined to take some kind of online course this week.
Oh, that's
or
absolutely
to actually travel if our situation allows.
Yeah, because obviously COVID restrictions have made that more difficult. It depends where you are, which territory, which country you're in the world, and it seems to alternate, doesn't it? Some countries seem to have a spring back, things open up, and then go back down into more restrictive measures, and others and other states go through periods of being more open. So we hope wherever you are, you're safe, but you are able to interact a little bit more than has been possible. Now, we have had people writing in terms of the mailbag, and would you like to shout out some of those?
Yeah,
Elisa?
so first of all, just like to say a big hello to Nick, who wrote in last week, having gone through a serious health issue. We're happy to inform you that he is on the road to recovery, so that's really brilliant news. But he also wrote in again with a different question, and I thought this question was fantastic, so I'll read it out for you. He's saying here, I have a few astrology books myself, and I like to match up charts, but it always makes male and female, like Virgo woman and Scorpio man, or whatever it may be. What about same-sex partnerships? Is it different? And how historically, if any, has astrology evolved to incorporate that? Same for tarot as well. Can you clearly see same-sex partnerships within a chart, or do you have to use intuition? And has tarot had to evolve over the years to make sense of this modern society?
Oh, what a brilliant
so much
point
to unpack there.
Yeah, brilliant point, Nick.
From the tarot perspective, I definitely feel that we could do with a bit of updating of the cards.
We did mention that, didn't we?
Yeah, and we'd like to
create
some of our own. I think it's important to remember that every single one of us has masculine and feminine energy. Regardless of our gender, regardless of our sexuality, we have both of those energies within us. And I said in the Aquarius reading for April that if we think of masculine energy as a triangle, it's very, it looks a bit phallic, but it's also a pushing forwards energy. It's going for it, it's instigation. And then if we invert that triangle into the feminine symbol, it's receptive, it lets things flow into it. So when we have those two parts of ourselves working well together, we can go out and get things, and then we can receive things as well. So I think with the tarot, take the cards with a pinch of salt. So if it's the Queen of Wands, it doesn't have to be a female.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point, Elisa. In fact, this week, the two planets of relating, Venus, which is that more receptive energy that Elisa's referring to there, the inverted energy, and Mars, the more go-getting energy, are actually collaborating brilliantly. So this could be an important week for a lot of people if they would like to meet someone or like to add more spark to an existing relationship. This can be a very important week because those two principles are well aligned, they're in balance. So that's really, really good. But I also would like to say, Nick, that if anyone wants to reach out to me for a same-sex synastry or composite analysis, it's absolutely no problem because I already do them. Equalities is something that's very close to my heart, particularly with sexuality. It goes right back to having friends since I was in my teens. And it wasn't long after the time when homosexuality in Britain was illegal. And people used to have to be quite covert in their behaviour. And there was a famous film starring Dirk Bogart, which I think was called The Civil... It's about a civil servant or something. I can't quite remember. It was very, very tense because it could risk going to jail, which shows how far we've come in some situations. But then we still have people who heckle, still have people who will be very unpleasant on social media. And we still have countries in the world where if you're gay, some of the retribution that's meted out is so brutal and barbaric, it's incredible. I don't even want to say it on here, but it is just dreadful. So it's a brilliant point, Nick. And I think in terms of, is there anything in a natal horoscope that flags up a person's sexual orientation? There used to be this saying years ago that if the moon preceded the sun by a few degrees, it could point towards that. But I think that's very old hat. And anyway, we're nearly getting to a new moon with that particular configuration. And new moons can make people very single-minded. And so certainly people from all different orientations, but if they are a bit different from what used to be perceived as the mainstream, have to show enormous courage and single-mindedness. But I think that's quite an outdated principle, to be perfectly honest. I think it's more about respecting the fact that, like Elisa said, we all have different parts to our nature, and it isn't necessarily about our physical or sexual orientation what balances those more masculine and feminine energies.
Yeah. And not to presume as well.
Exactly, don't make assumptions.
Whenever we're working with a client, we would never just presume one way or another unless the client specifically said that to us. So we'd use pronouns that would fit anybody. And I think that's the way to go, just to go into something with a bit of sensitivity, and then people can share whatever they want to share.
But I can also see from Nick's viewpoint, or any other person who is asking this question to understand how it is out there, well, what literature is there that's orientated in towards same-sex? There probably is, I would say, almost certainly, a massive lack of anyone thinking in those terms. So there's definitely an opportunity for an astrologer to address that. Perhaps it'd be something I'll do myself one day. We actually have some friends who are very, very notable members of the gay movement. They were part of one person, Jeff, was part of the opening Pride March in London many years ago, but I think it was like 50 years ago. And Jeff recently celebrated that with a safe distance gathering last year. And Jeff has won many awards along with his partner for their campaigning work. So it's something that we have a real strong passion for, is those equalities.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other questions that came up in the mailbag was from John Barryman in Australia. And John asked, Saturn Return, what does it mean, and does it come every 7 years? Mm-hmm. And he asked, does it mean reset, recalibrate, and so on, which you have mentioned before with Mercury retrograde. What's your take on Saturn retrograde?
Well, for me, I have...
Or Saturn Return,
just come out of my full Saturn Return.
Yeah, the first one.
My first one. And it was a ride. I think a lot of people... what is it? Usually from the age of about 27 to...
But Elisa does have a real stellium of planets in the sign of Capricorn. And of course you have Saturn there, which is where it's dignified. So you're very disciplined, very hardworking, very applied. But Elisa also has other planets around it. So as Saturn goes over those other planets, it can of course have a limiting
and they are
tendency.
in my 6th house, which is the house of health. So I have had a bit of a tough time with that recently. So of course it depends on what you have in your natal chart. It depends what is going on.
What
for
planetary
you as well.
configurations, what house sign your Saturn return would be in. But just to answer it, John, it actually happens about every 29 and a half years. Saturn goes through 3 retrogrades in its sweep through each zodiac sign. So some people can be spectacularly unlucky the way it connects with their inner planets through those 3 retrogrades. So it'll move on to a planet, retrograde, and then go back onto it again. But it isn't just on Saturn, like Elisa says. It can be on other planets as well. I think the first Saturn return, when we're about anything from about 28 and a half through to about 30 and a half, sometimes it can be much later for people, up to 31. I think it really is about getting very serious about what you really want from your life. So some people who may have had children young may feel that they want to reinvest in their career, or they may want to go into higher education once they've had their first Saturn return. Other people who may have not had children may want to settle down. Everyone's different, but Saturn return asks us to be very disciplined about the things that really matter. So it does mean that some of the more the fripperies around our situation become less essential. So we're after narrow our focus. And the next Saturn return happens when we're around about 58 to 59 years of age. And of course, if we're lucky enough, we have one 29 and a half years after that as well. Now, this week's influences. So I have got the astrology for this week, but someone did write in and say, I missed the
Thought for the day.
Thought for the day, which is now thought for the week. So
Thought for the week.
apologies that we didn't do that last week.
Yes.
So we're going to do it this week.
Yeah, so we're going to give the jar a shake.
Can you also please write in and share some themes that you'd like us to cut up and put in the cookie jar?
yeah.
Because we put our themes in here some while ago. I hope one doesn't come out that we've called before.
I've taken some of the ones that keep coming out.
Okay.
So
Fair play.
we can have a fresh
If
perspective.
I open it and you pick one,
Oh, okay,
how's that
thank you
then?
so much.
In the cookie jar. Elisa gave me a lovely Easter egg today, and
Patrick gave me a lovely Easter egg today as well.
we got your mum coming soon.
Yeah.
Um,
She's already had her Easter egg. Okay.
oh, wow!
Oh,
I love
nice
this one.
This the word on this little snippet says listening.
Yeah.
So I feel this week, this is twofold. We are going to be asked to be the person that just listens. Sometimes our friends or family members or people that are just close to us just want to maybe have a vent, just maybe want to have a talk about things that are happening. And sometimes they're not looking for action steps to get out of it. Some of us that really are very keen on moving things forward will give action steps or things that people can do. But sometimes people just need to be listened to.
Well, you've got Chiron in the 12th house, which is an incredibly beautiful location once you get the hang of it, because, it can attract sort of unkind attention. Chiron in the 12th house, because it is so compassionate, but it's very hard to sort of keep boundaries. But you're a fantastic listener, I feel.
Oh, thank you so much. Absolutely.
No, it's true.
And we may also be the person that just wants to be listened to this week, and to just say how and just to say how we really feel about something.
One of the things that comes up for me with my clients in one-to-one readings is that a lot of people, but particularly YouTube astrologers, constantly talk about the ascendant, or people write in and say, is this for the ascendant? Is it for the sun? Is it for the moon? Nobody seems to think about the descendant. And the descendant is the 7th house. Now, the 7th house is a bit complex. It can, in very ancient astrology, be the sector of open enemies. So the person we know at work that we don't like that much, but we've got to get on with them. Or it could be the neighbour, it gets on our nerves, but we don't want to fall out with them. Or it could be the person that we have to collaborate and cooperate with. But it can also be where we have the most pleasure in life, where we get the greatest accord, where we get harmony, where we find a meeting point. It's very Libran. So the 7th house, the descendant, is very much about listening. And it seems to me the way the world is, everybody wants to have an opinion. Everyone wants to get on Twitter, YouTube, on Facebook and say how it is and tear down everyone else. But you know, one of the things we all need to do is actually, one, be very selective with the stuff we're reading, because there's so much over there, it's overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But also, it's about listening, and listening to the stuff that's more worthy. A very esteemed astrologer, hugely skilled and experienced astrologer, who runs the School of Traditional Astrology, Deborah Holding, shared something on Twitter today about the need for astrologers basically to be dignified and not to be boasting and not to be trying to be very competitive about their achievements. And it was all about, even if there was something difficult to share with someone, to do it in a very mindful way. That's a kind of modern uptake. And this is all quoted by the ancient English astrologer William Lilly. But Deborah's point was that experience is very important, and listening is a huge part of my work. It's not necessarily just giving people information, it is listening to where they're coming from. Yeah. Because the more I can decipher where people are coming from, the more I can help them in the way that they need, not in the way I feel I should share something. So listening's becoming almost a forgotten art form, I feel.
Yeah, and it's also this, I feel like we're living in a time of, hashtags, hashtag be kind. Well, it's easy to write that, isn't it? But let's do it, yeah. Not just write, be kind, be thoughtful, be compassionate, be empathetic. Let's just live, all of us live by the way that we would want to be treated. Yeah. And we are recording this on Easter Sunday, and regardless of your religious background or your beliefs, Jesus was somebody who said treat each other, treat each other how you want to be treated, basically. And that is the main
yeah. Elisa shared something lovely on Thursday. She said that she always found Maundy Thursday very painful because of the betrayal that Jesus went through. And again, whether you're a Christian or not, or you believe in the afterlife or a God or not, betrayal is something that probably most of us do experience at some stage in our lives. If you're lucky enough never to have experienced it, then that's great. But I thought it was lovely that Elisa tuned into him, and I think Good Friday particularly can be a very sad day.
Yeah.
And it always seems a bit incongruous when people do send Happy Easter cards, but then today is more joyful, isn't it? Because
he's come back.
Yeah, and my friend Tracy, who's a very devout Christian, one of my son's a very devout Christian actually, but I have two very close friends, Tracy and Jill, and they both will be rejoicing today, so that's lovely. Now, the astrology for this week. We've yet to talk about this, and we also need a card for the week as well. Do you want to do the card first, or shall I do
the astrology first?
Okay, I'll do the astrology.
I want to know.
So I told you about Mercury moving into Aries, which I love, and it's just moving over my 4th house cusp in my progressions, and I'm really hoping that that's going to be significant for us because we're going to view more houses this week, and the 4th house is about home, family, where we live. But all this week we've got Venus sextiling Mars, which I mentioned before, so it can be a great time to align that more feminine, more masculine energy. But equally, Mars is in a square with Neptune this week, and that is very complex and can be quite tricky. Because Neptune's in the 12th zodiac sign, which can be about hidden enemies, it can be about secrets, more psychological emphasis, and Mars is in the chatty Gemini. So if we feel an urge this week to achieve something, our desire, which comes from Mars, we just need to be aware that we're living in our own truth, our own reality. If we want something so much that we're tempted to take a shortcut, do something a bit dodgy or illegal in the state, country, or continent that we live in, just bear that in mind. Also, you may encounter someone who's a bit of a trickster this week, so watch out for someone who may offer something that's very tempting, because there could be a bit of a hidden catch. But despite this, Mars is also forging an awesome angle to Jupiter. So Jupiter and Mars together, Mars in the air sign of Gemini, Jupiter in the air sign of Aquarius. So an idea that as long as we've got the facts clear, we're not letting Neptune distort our reality, can really take a major step forwards. Also, we have a terrific angle between Venus and Jupiter. So I mentioned before, if there is someone that you're drawn to, sometimes we have to take courage in our hands and just reach out to someone, even if it doesn't always work out. But Venus sextile in Jupiter suggests if you do meet someone new this week and you can chat from the off, can't guarantee you'll be with one another forever, but I think it will be, on the whole, a pretty successful friendship at the very least. And also, from Friday to Sunday, we have a lovely angle between Mercury and Saturn. So whereas Mercury last week was being really affected in a negative way by Neptune, by the end of this week it's helping us to really get the details nailed down in a much more precise and meaningful way. Also, the North Node, which was of course causing that square with Neptune for quite a long time, from about October through, I think, precisely to the 6th of January, but within 3 degrees it kind of went on to about the end of February. So a really tricky aspect for all of us. Well, the North Node, which is almost like the societal direction of travel emotionally, that's in a terrific angle with Saturn this week. So I think it all points towards us trying to find a greater dignity around communication. Try to choose our words with the greatest of care, because sometimes we can all get very upset, very defensive, blurt something out because we don't feel people are hearing us, and it can be hurtful. But also we must remember, of course, that people can hurt us sometimes far more powerfully through silence, and silence can be very, very cruel. So important to answer and interact too. So, Elisa, what is the card for the week?
Today
card.
I thought we would use the Enlightenment Oracle cards, because we're following on from that Easter energy.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I love the graphics of these cards. They're very modern, aren't they?
Yeah, they're lovely. So I think I want to pull a pink one today. So the card that comes up, ooh, it's a saucy one. It says sexuality gift. So this can have two meanings. I think the first meaning of this card could mean that our sexuality or our sexual energy is a gift. And maybe it is, I know I've said this before in videos and it's caused a few chuckles, but just to think about who we're sharing that energy with. Because if we think of that as a gift, we don't want to just be giving without, thinking about how that is being treasured.
And isn't it amazing that that card's come up when Venus is in a beautiful angle with Mars, which is about raw passion. Venus is about the more emotive related side, but also with Jupiter. Venus sextile Jupiter is one of the luckiest aspects of all. And also, it's worth saying that Venus sextiling Jupiter is very much about money as well. So if we're feeling good about ourselves, we're drawing goodness to us. So could we think about this card as drawing attractiveness?
Maybe like
not just intimacy.
Yeah, it's not just about the physical act of that. Maybe a growing confidence inside us is making us feel, like you say, more attractive, or making people feel more attracted towards us, because that confidence is what people are viewing.
Wherever you are in the world, because obviously in the northern hemisphere the weather's getting a bit brighter, and so this is a time when we are feeling a bit better, but because of the lockdown, it hasn't been easy to dress up and, but actually, go to your mirror, slap on some makeup if that's your thing.
You're going to do that?
I'm definitely going to do that. And, take a bit of care to pamper yourself, and then look in the mirror and say, oh my God, I'm absolutely awesome. Because we can all do that. We've all got that ability to draw loveliness to us. So I think there's lots this week with that gorgeous angle between Venus and Mars, the gorgeous angle between Mars and Jupiter, which is it's really pushing us to show gusto and be more gregarious and outgoing, and also between Venus and Jupiter, which is just can be so fortunate. So fortune favours the brave. So whether you're reaching out to someone online, getting in contact with someone you had a bit of a thing for, but it didn't go anywhere, check things out. This is a time to be more speculative when it comes to relationships, for sure.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. If you would like to take part in your Patrick reading your chart, then you need to leave your time, date,
place, but place can't just be state or county. You need to say, so, if it's in a big state in the States, so for example, Austin, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, and so on, because otherwise I just can't do the chart for you, I'm sorry. Thank you to all our Patreons. Thank you to all of you for all your lovely comments. Remember, you can sign up for your free daily horoscope by seeing the link beneath this video. We'd be delighted if you subscribe to our channel, but for now, stay safe. Have a wonderful week from us both, and it is
goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from us. Goodbye.